You might be asking yourself while you witness horrifying war crimes take place in other parts of the world why so-called progressive politicians won't demand a ceasefire and instead are calling for a humanitarian pause. They use a lot of the right language and have the right talking points on paper. They'll mention things like, the situation is dire. This is a humanitarian crisis. We must act swiftly and justly. But they won't use the term ceasefire.
We need to see a we need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of...
Why is that? Isn't it pretty much the same thing? Isn't it just a matter of semantics? I mean, it really does sound like they care when they express their sadness to children being killed, but at the end of the day, isn't that kind of the bare minimum? Both a ceasefire and a, quote, pause for humanitarian aid will allow for the flow of humanitarian aid. While the conditions of a ceasefire can vary greatly depending on the two warring factions, typically it means a stoppage of war where both sides agreed to suspend aggressive actions and direct combat. In the past, it went by terms like truce or armistice in order to begin negotiations between warring factions. In the modern age, if abiding by the rules of the United Nations Security Council, resolutions via Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, it's an internationally observable end to violence so that a diplomatic resolution can begin being negotiated. A pause for humanitarian aid will typically pause direct fire between the two warring factions to allow for the flow of medical supplies or food or Doctors Without Borders to enter the region to try and help the toll the conflict has taken on civilians, and then after agreed upon period, the warfare will resume. The terms of a ceasefire include humanitarian aid to travel into the region, so why pick one over the other? Because if a conflict involved two factions that were completely asymmetrical, where one side is an impoverished civilian population of half children who have been kept in what is described as the world's largest open-air prison, where in the best of times they barely have clean drinking water, electricity, and access to medical supplies, and the other side was backed by the most powerful military force in the world, and up to this point cut off that civilian population of half children from access to all food, fuel, water, and medical supplies, and then they bombed hospitals, children's schools, medical centers, news outlets, universities, refugee camps, and killed over 4,000 kids in under a month. Well, the idea of putting a pause on it, rather than trying to stop it, suddenly becomes very fucked.
I want to just clarify one thing, Senator, if I might. You support a humanitarian pause in Gaza. Some of your fellow progressives say that there should be a full-on ceasefire, which would require an agreement on both sides to halt the fighting. Do you support a ceasefire? And if not, why not?
Well, I don't know how you could have a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, with an organization like Hamas, which is dedicated to turmoil and chaos and destroying the state of Israel. And I think what the Arab countries in the region understand, that Hamas has got to go.
The occupation is starving us. We don't find water, food, and we drink from the unusable water. We come now to shout and invite you to protect us. We want to live, we want peace, we want to judge the killers of children. We want medicine, food, and education. And we want to live as the other children live.
No one wants to be on the wrong side of history, especially when the writing is on the wall. So politicians can see how bad things are getting and want to absolve themselves of how it will reflect on their legacy in the future. Oh no, I was calling it out, you see. I said that I wanted a temporary pause so a few trucks could trickle in and I get to pat myself on the back. There's a reason they're so afraid to say the words, and it's because they know the difference and want to both appear to meet the moment, oppose the mass slaughter of children, while still being loyal allies to the country that's committing the war crimes.